So I'm Anne Laurent, and as Carol Ann mentioned, it's really appreciate the invitation to be here. It's an honor to speak to this group, and I have been in the community for about 10 years. Over the last 14 years, I did take a little hiatus, and unfortunately, that house that Carol Ann spoke about, they didn't want to sell it back to Steve and I when we came back. We tried, but they love it, so we're happy for them. You know, we're in this phase of our lives where our kids have just gone off to college, and grieving a little bit about not having my kids at home. It's very much a different experience for us. So that's where we are. I've had 4 different titles at the county. I came here in 2008 as the Capital Projects and Facilities Director, working on a lot of capital projects, which is how I got to know a lot of folks in the community. And then there was a year where we were a down year of budgets, and we were doing some consolidations, and the community development director retired. So new county manager Harry Burgess merged my department with community development. So I became the community development and economic and community development director. And then I left for Park City, Utah for a few years, an opportunity to work on a new arts and culture district and some developments there. But when the public works director position opened up, I jumped at the opportunity to come back, and my kids were able to graduate, although during COVID years, from the high school, and it's been really nice. So I've had a really good broad experience in different operations. And so then when the opportunity to work for the county managers arose, I was really excited about that. Although I am an architect and project manager, I also went back to school to get my master's of public administration. I wouldn't do this job in any other community, quite honestly. I just really am passionate about working on things that benefit where I live, and I find it very rewarding. So with that, enough about me. One of the things I was asked about was to talk about what do I do in my new role. And one of the divisions that I oversee is the communications and public relations. It's also, can be called the Public Information Office, or PIO. And many of you know Julie Williams. I think she's on the call. So she's doing all kinds of really great things. She updated the communications plan under the direction of our council priority of enhanced communication. And this also is in response to a lot of citizen survey information as well. So some of the things that are in the work is a new website coming in the next 6 to 8 months. Some of you may see our increased presence on social media, but there's also a new position that is currently being advertised as social media coordinator. And then we've also heard through the survey that Community Services did recently that people do prefer to be notified about things via email. It's very difficult for us to do that because we don't have everyone's email through utilities or anything like that. And sometimes they're not up to date, but we are looking at options for that. One of them being what's called a 311 Tyler app, which is through customer care. And this is going to be a way where people can notify us of, anything from potholes to smoke to whatever. I mean, obviously smoke's a bad example. I take that back. Call the fire department, or call dispatch on that one. But if it's something non-emergency, but something that the county needs to be aware of, a street light that's out, this is a great place where it can be reported, and then you can get notified when it's been fixed, and when it's what the status is of it. And we just think it's a good opportunity to maybe think about having some sort of email notification lists, and where I think all of you, have experienced where you can, when you're purchasing something or you sign up for something, you start getting a bunch of emails, and then you have to go and decide what kind of emails you do or don't want to get. And it's something along that lines. We'd like to have some sort of interface with the community that way. we certainly still use all of our traditional media outlets and press releases and all that, but we're also starting to really focus on videos, short videos. We have a lot of vacancies at the county, so we're trying to focus on that. And I think some of you have seen a short video about the vandalism that we were experiencing. So we have a couple contracts in place, and we're getting some really good responses and feedback that people like videos. They also work with social media quite well. And then we have the recurring newsletters, County Line, COVID, and Cone Zone. I've got a link here. I'm happy to make this presentation available to where folks can sign up. We know there's been some issues in the past. People have had some troubles about having things go to their junk mail folder and things like that. But Julie's made a lot of improvements and certainly is willing to work with folks if they're having trouble, but would like to receive these notices. And then within the next few months, we're planning to, every 2 years, we do the community survey. So I think you're all familiar with that. And so that's a combination of calls and things like that. Process should be similar to last year because we like to trend on the same kind of questions. And then we usually add a few different questions based on what's going on at the time in the community that we may want some feedback on. And then there's other publications that this CPR division puts out, which is the annual report. And there's also a CMO monthly updates. County Manager Lynn does these presentations under his updates once a month to council. But you can also go online. They're all posted online, and it goes division by division. And it's a lot of information, but it's a great place to go to see, if you want to see what's going on with the county, that's a great place to look. And then just general, this CPR, just general counsel and manager support. I think you all heard recently, so I'm not going to talk too much about this, but I think you heard from Jerry Smith and his background as in broadband, working with the state and the public education department. And I'm working very closely with Jerry, working with the state broadband office and our regional entities on our grant opportunities for the middle mile, which is connecting our community to other communities. The goal of the middle mile is to connect major hubs and have also redundancy. The reason for this is it increases competition, and so therefore you get better quality at more affordable prices. And it also is better service because it offers redundant paths. So therefore, right now we only have one fiber link by CenturyLink, or they go by Lumen off the hill. So that has been something that we have wanted in place, a second middle mile, for a long time. And the funding is out there, so we're working on it. It does take partnerships because a lot of different land ownerships and situations. And for middle mile, you look at things like, are there existing electric poles or existing conduits or right of ways that we can utilize that make it straightforward. This initiative gets into complexities about when new paths on environmental clearances and things like that. So that's what's going on with the middle mile. And then the last mile, the county hired, I think it was spring, early summer contract for CTC, and they're updating our 2012 Community Broadband Network, CBN plan. And looking at, it's basically fiber to the home. And we anticipate, we have a community survey drafted. We're just waiting for the printers to print it and for it to get sent out. It's going to be statistically valid. So not everyone will get the statistically valid one, but we are going to make a survey also available to anyone who wants to take it, and we'll compare the data for, and then we're hoping that will inform our RFP to look for partners to be internet service providers or brokers of ISPs. And again, our purpose is to create a high quality broadband service to everyone in the community at the most affordable rate we can get. Community Services Department, this was one that you all required to know a little bit more about. So I put a little bit more information about it. It is one of our larger departments. We do have a lot of seasonal and temporary positions, and that's because they're taking care of all the parks and open spaces, stables, county landscaping and trails, and then also recreational facilities, ice rink, aquatic center, and golf course, library, and then social services. They also have 4 different boards they liaison to and coordinate: the Parks and Rec Board, Library, Health Council, and Arts and Public Places. A good part of their work is also a lot of community contracts for services and events that they oversee. And I'm listing them all out here, but there's a lot of contracts that have to be updated, reported on, invoices paid. So there's quite a bit of contract management within community services, but you can see how broad the nature of those are. And couple of the new ones, I think you're mostly familiar with all these, but a couple of the new ones you may not be familiar with is last year, for the first time, the Ice Wolves came up and did an event, a game at our ice rink, and they're going to come again in December. And the tickets are going to be a fundraiser for the local hockey, Laha, is it Laha? And they also publish the, they also are in charge of the 502 tunnel or underpass. There's places to do art in there, and they'll get refreshed each year, but there's a link on our website where you can sign up for a spot that's available. I think they may all be taken at this point. So the next chance will be, there's a certain time of year, I don't recall it off the top of my head, that'll all be painted over and a fresh start. And then this community services also publishes the seasonal activity guides, which we get a lot of good feedback on for the seasons, especially new people. The community really like to know, because it's a good source of all the different things that are going on in one spot. People like them from the coffee tables for sure. And then this was these are a couple projects specific. There's a lot of projects, so I'm not intending to do all of them. There is a link here to our project website where you can see all the different projects going on. But these were 2 that were you all asked to talk a little bit about, and I'm not going to go into too much detail. I think I'll probably leave these a little bit more to what questions you might have. But the golf course, I'll give my history a little bit back to, it was around 2010, 2011, when the county was seeing for the first time some increased monies coming in because the lab had privatized and was subject to gross receipts tax. And usually when the laboratory has gross receipts tax increases, and we know that they're short term, they certainly cycle over time, but when they go high, we tend to put them more towards capital one-time costs and try to be more judicious and conservative with the recurring costs, because we know we need to weather the ups and downs with operations. And so at that time, the clubhouse replacement and all the deferred maintenance at the golf course was identified and submitted for. And out of that was the clubhouse replacement was funded, and then a master plan to look at the other improvement needs there was funded. But it was just the master plan, and that, was similar to conversations that are being had today still. And that is just about real estate and how to best use that real estate and take care of our safety concerns, but then also protect our surrounding open space and environment. And it goes back to when Diamond Drive was widened. I think, I'll just give my understanding of what I've heard from the Los Alamos Golf Association and their strong voice in this project is that they really would like to basically, when they lost some of the real estate for Diamond Drive widening, they'd like to try to, it's created some safety issues and the inability to address the safety issues at driving range. So that's resulting in looking at how they can gain some real estate for the course itself to address those. And we have gone through several different options, and we actually changed consultant because the initial consultant decided that they didn't have the endurance to keep having the conversation. So we are on our second consultant, but what council did was separate, and at Laga's request was separate out phase one. So where we are today is the clubhouse and the irrigation are completed. There's 2 phases for general upgradings of the course itself, and also addressing safety concerns. I'll add on there was some other, also adding a restroom for improved comfort when on the range or when golfing. And phase 1 is on schedule to be issued to bid for the end of 2022. What the debate lingers on this one is just really about what to do with the driving range, and then also a safety issue. I think it's on hole 7. It's the one that runs along Diamond Drive on the south side and east of the clubhouse. Just because there's some recommendations to the way it's triggered to reduce balls easily going onto Diamond Drive. So those are the 2 safety issues. There's several scenarios, and there just isn't necessarily clear agreement within the community about which there's a solution that's that everybody likes. So we're still working on that, and we would like to, in November, we'd like to have another conversations with the Parks and Recreation Board, and then in December we'd like to be back in front of council to at least lay out all the different scenarios we've looked at in one kind of big matrix with their pros and cons, and see if we can come to a direction forward on the safety issues around the driving range, and what the implications are to the boundary to address those. So I that's my general overview, but you might have specific questions. But that project is moving forward, and there is a project that we're hoping to have under construction sooner than later, this winter, spring. And then for Pueblo Trail, I guess what I'll say about this project is it really is just a conceptual study. This is not a project by any stretch that has monies tagged to it the way the golf course project did in first construction. And it was money that council had put it back in the budget. I want to say it was almost back in 2015 or 17. It was somewhere in that range. And there were at that time evaluations of Bio Canyon and some discussions around that. There has been discussions in the past, and there's some current ones going on with the ski hill. But this one was also to look at Pueblo Trail. And I think I'll just give my opinion. I think this one got off a little bit on the wrong foot because of some limitations around hybrid at the first meetings, which were subsequently improved later. But I think there was just some confusion about not enough introduction to the project about what it was and what we were looking in. And we ran into like a misunderstanding, I think, where there were some different elements or attributes or amenities looked at that it was perceived that it was kind of all or nothing. And they are really just different elements that the whole purpose of the study was to get feedback on. And I think that frustrated some folks as well. So we had a council meeting with a lot of public input. It was very, very good public input. We've gone back to the consultant to coordinate a couple meetings, and we're looking at adding a biologist, but until we can get that schedule worked out with the project manager, we'd like to be back sooner than later before the end of the year. But what I did was I did collect and made a spreadsheet of everybody's emails who submitted comments to council and to the public Parks and Rec Board about this project. And so our intention that when we get that straightened out, we'll make sure everybody's aware of when the next conversation is. And then, you know, the last part of my job is just really being a member of the county manager's office. And a lot of what we do is I put this little graphic in, which is from council's strategic leadership plan. And really, you know, the county manager's office is sort of a hub of all these different things, and trying to be a touchstone to, is everything we're doing, you know, moving forward, our plans and our priorities that council's set out for us. And so I did put a link into that project, but I know I reference it often to try to give myself a little bit of a priorities and direction, and use it as a touchstone for maybe how we should move forward on certain issues that are arising. We spend a lot of time putting together and managing council agendas. And we do also manage intergovernmental relations out of this office. My portion of that is more focused on legacy waste cleanup and the operations of EM and 3B, just staying educated on that and up to date, and notifying folks when there's things that are being talked about that affect the county that we should be aware of. And currently we have opened all 4 collective bargaining agreements at one time, which is unprecedented. So we're spending a lot of time on that right now, largely because, and I mentioned the videos we're doing for jobs, but we have several areas, and we know it's a national issue, but there's several areas where we're really falling short on being able to fill jobs. And so these efforts are just right in line with the need to fill positions and retain employees and stay competitive in the state and the region as an employer, as a municipal employer. And so I put staffing, inflation, and housing costs just because I think the collective bargaining is just on my brain right now. And those are things that with the cost, everything from the cost of food to gas to automobiles, since a large portion of our workforce, not just Lanels, also is commutes, and our ability to have affordable housing in communities are all things that, as the county manager's office, are high on our minds to be working with on potential solutions and plans. Certainly housing is not something that happens overnight. But you know, if we don't start now, we're going to be that much more behind on strategies for that. So with that, I'm just going to say, I think I'm about 30 minutes in. So, you know, I hear a lot of people say, you must be busy, I don't want to bother you, but please don't hesitate to reach out. And I think, you know, some folks are very bold and confident and don't mind sending emails or making a phone call, but I find that others are very hesitant to do so. And I think, you know, in our line of work, we're here to serve the community, and it's important we hear from you. We don't sometimes we feel like we hear a little bit maybe late. I think we're trying to do our best to get out in front of the community conversations, but I guess with that, I'll just say we're here to serve and just welcome your questions. And I, you know, if there's anything that I talked about with the projects or anything that, you know, you're hearing different things or you have a different perspective, I would really welcome the feedback today, if you're willing. So thanks. see if I can get. I think I've hit stop share, but it doesn't seem to be taking yet.
Caroline, you're muted.
No, there. Okay. Phew. I had hit a lot of buttons. Thank you. So I thought, I see that Janet has a question, but I also saw Jody's pop up as I was trying to get back online. So Jody, can you hold on a minute, let Janet go? And Janet, you have to unmute, and I think you can do it yourself.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
So-
yes. There, I've unmuted. I had questions related to the Pueblo Trail. I wanted, if Anne could please repeat what the consultant has been asked to do.
Oh, so the consultant was asked to just do a conceptual analysis of the existing trails and area and what the potentials for mountain biking opportunities were, and then also work with us on a public input process to gain feedback on people's thoughts on that. And I think, you know, what I was trying to explain was I don't think we did a great job sort of setting up where, you know, that this was a conceptual discussion, and the purpose was to get feedback. And I think that technology was kind of a challenge too. We started with a hybrid meeting, and the people in the room weren't microphones, so the people online couldn't hear and didn't know who was speaking. And I think it just got frustrating for folks, and it was hard to kind of recoup from that. But that's kind of what it is it's really just a conceptual evaluation. There's no construction project. It was really just to inform what the opportunities were and then what people felt about it. And we haven't finished that process yet because based on the feedback, you know, each meeting was a little bit, there were changes made based on feedback. And I think people didn't understand that it was still kind of a nimble process too. And so what we're doing right now is trying to work with the project manager for a couple additional meetings to address the last council meeting questions and feedback we received, as well as from the environmental perspective, adding a biologist to the team to give us some of that more scientific feedback as well. The feedback we got is don't look at that later, look at that now. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, and then I don't want to take up all the time, but my question was more, what has the consultant been asked to do now? And you're saying that they're working with the project manager for a couple additional ideas and adding a biologist. There is a large group of us who are interested in open space and open space advocacy. And my impression after the county council meeting was that there would be an effort to work with us. We're not a formal group, but to work with us on providing ideas and feedback. And the group has not been contacted. So I'm wondering, is there going to be an effort to contact the group? Who is the project manager? And when the public meeting is advertised and presented, is it going to be a PRB or a separate meeting?
That's a great question. So we're working with the project manager who works for the consultant to identify some additional scoping meetings and adding biologists to their team. It's a contractual change. So until I have that contractual change in place, I don't have the schedule of the meetings, but the intention is to have a, meet with the public, PRB and council again, with additional information, responding to the feedback we received at the council meeting. And I did collect everybody who submitted emails to PRB and council. I did collect all those emails into a spreadsheet, and our intention is to email everybody as well as go through our normal social media and traditional media outlets to get the word out once they're scheduled. But I don't have a time frame on it because of the contractual changes we're having to address.
And who is the project manager? Is it a county person or someone, a contractor?
It's the contractor that was presenting that you saw at the meetings as well as at the council meeting.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, I just asked a question very quickly, not even of you, Ann, but on my iPad, it says that my photo is there, but I don't see me. Can you see me? Well, I don't know how to do it, so I'm sorry. So I'm gonna give up on mine because it's not showing that anything is off, but I don't see me. Okay, so I apologize. But Jody, do you want to go ahead? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. And thank you, Anne, for all the work you've been doing. I know this is a hard town to work in because we all want everything our way, including me. So I have a question about Columbus Capital. I saw the article in Moira's LA Daily, not the Post, but her reporter. And the interview was very confusing to me. So I'd like to ask about how the county can oversee Columbus Capital's Merrimack deal, because it's unclear to me what they plan to do. But in that article, they stated that they will use the old Smiths as storage for Lannel. That seems to me obscene and absurd because with Los Alamos, a landlocked community, and the county desperate to develop green space for new housing, it doesn't make any sense for Lannel, who owns most of the land in the county, to store stuff in that huge vacant space that could be used for dorms or apartments or retail. And these are essential assets that we've been talking about, what the county needs. So the question is, can the county have any say in what happens in this space? Or do we just turn it loose to the developers because it's a private contractual thing? And then the second one, which it's probably you don't know, but does Columbus Capital have anywhere for the current businesses to go while the company builds whatever it is they're building? Because we're worried about the current businesses going out of business because there's no place else to put them. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jody. I will do my best. Merrimack, as many of you know, is privately owned. And my understanding is it's under a purchase agreement as described in the media. So that's a private transaction. So the county has no role in that. What I understand is that the purchaser has submitted a request for an application for a special use for storage. And I believe it was for Lannel, but then I thought I read that it was withdrawn and replaced with one that's largely housing, but was self-storage that was temporary, and that would be phased out with housing units within some sort of time frame. However, with all that said, that is a private application to the community development division planning for them to review through our interdepartmental review committee, at which point then it would find its way onto a planning and zoning commission agenda. And that's all regulated by our chapter 16 municipal code. So how the county influences what's on private property is through our development code. So that's where we are with that. I don't know all the details. They might still be in the process of amending their application or clarifying it for staff. So those are things that I just don't know at this point. But it is a private development and they're working through the processes. So at this point, I'm not aware of any involvement or ask or participation in that, because we don't own it. I think, you know, if you think about like Canyon Walk Apartments, that was county property that we donated for the purpose of affordable housing and apartment units. So that we had a little, so that resulted in a development agreement with that developer. So, but there's nothing on the table like that, where there's some ask of the county where we are considering some sort of development at this point that I'm aware of. So I'm not the answer, I don't have all the answers you were looking for, Jody, but I hope that's a little bit helpful.
Yes, it is. Thank you. And I didn't understand that the Lano storage deal was no longer on the table. So thank you.
Yeah, and double check that. I'm not 100% clear when they said self-storage. I don't know all the definitions of that. So I would stay close to the Planning and Zoning Commission publication. When that gets ready to go to them, that's where all that information will be published.
Thank you.
Yeah, what I had heard, maybe or read, and clearly I may be mistaken, is that they were just going to use the old Smiths itself for storage because they were getting paid by the lab, because all the prices went up and interest rates went up and everything went up, and they would just get some money back and then they would get rid of it. But I don't know either, Jody, but that's what I read someplace and I can't even tell you where. Anyway, does anyone else have a question? Or you go ahead, Jody. You're muted, however. Jody, unmute.
I just wanted to say thank you. That's what I read too. And as I say, I didn't really understand the article, so thanks. And you probably read it in the Reporter.
Well, one or the other. That's definitely one of the things. Does anyone else have some questions? Because I don't see how to see everybody. I hate this when I use this. Is anyone? I'll tell you what, since I can't actually see this because I really should have never used this iPad. If you have a question, just unmute yourself and ask it, okay?
Well, and Carol-Ann, there are 4 items in the chat I can read and try to respond to.
Okay, because I don't know why I can't do this. Oh, I see the chat. Okay, finally. But okay.
Jean also has her hand up, so however you want me to do it.
Just call on somebody, that's fine.
Okay, Jean, go ahead and then we'll get to the chat next.
We have a need to use consultants and contracting companies to implement many things. It seems like this year we've had 2 major delays in being able to implement contracts. One, the Canyon Road reconstruction project, I understand had to be rebid, and then the delay moved it into the school year timeframe, which has been really a problem for the community. And then the development of a website to disperse federal COVID relief funds took more than a year to put in place. And I understand that was a contracting issue also. So does the county have some measures in place to improve our performance in contracting?
Great question. Little bit based on your examples, several different issues that I would measure different ways. So for Canyon, it was bid on time. We just didn't get any bidders, so we had to rebid. So that's really kind of one of those conditions that people are seeing all over, and was out of our control because we have such small windows. And so that one, I wouldn't necessarily say was a delay on the county's, or I wouldn't say is a delay on the county's part. I would say that when we procure services and we then want to execute contracts, that does take us longer than even staff wants many a time. So yeah, so the council might say, okay, let's see, Angelica on? No, I don't see Angelica. I'll use her project for one. We wanted to get a consultant to do the report for us to be able to consider community-wide composting and the economics and the business plan. I mean, that took a long time between council authorizing the monies for that study. And then we just recently were able to get council's nod to move forward with that. So, and that's been, for those involved, I mean, that was, years of work to get to that point. So that is one that I think we are very well aware of and are working hard to measure and improve upon. The last example you had, Jean, which one was it? It was
putting in place a website to disperse federal COVID relief funds.
yes. So that one wasn't a year. That was, I believe, we got the money at the end of May. And then I think you're aware it just went live on September 1st. The delays on that one is a function of, and I take that back. The money was available in March. We wanted to roll it out April, May as soon as we could. We rolled it out September 1. What we didn't get from the state was the fiscal guidance. That came out not until the end of May. And so it's very difficult to give away federal money, even though we want to make it as easy as we could. We don't want to put our businesses in a position where they might have to pay it back because they're non-compliant with the rules. So the final rules came out end of May, and we went down a path and we used we did get some consulting support. Our finance department did on the rules, and who were putting up had a portal for other communities, and we were using that as a sort of a model. The difference was that what we wanted to do with the money, which was give the majority of it to small businesses, and also for every possible option that was allowable per the financial rules, we found that other communities weren't doing, and so the consultant wasn't comfortable with what we wasn't comfortable or had an example already of how to do it. And so what we had to do was take that extra time to work with them and develop basically our own portal in consultation. But we were very frustrated by that. And again, I don't know that that's necessarily comparable to lack of no bidder or us not being able to execute a contract in a timely manner from the time we do council approval to doing an RFP to executing a contract. That one was something that that not everybody did, and we certainly were focused in a way other people weren't, but we're certainly super glad we got to that point. And I haven't had an update to know how many people have applied, but I guess I acknowledge the frustration. I just wanted to explain that a little bit, what we were sharing in your frustration. Not very often do we get to be in the position of giving out money, and we're super excited to do it.
Thank you.
Okay, should we go back to the chat here? Now that I figured out how to do it, maybe more chats. So Jean got on. Do you see another one, Anne?
Well, Jody was asking her questions about capital. I think she said.
Ed has one.
Oh,
Why
why
can't they
can't they
raise the height of the curtain at the driving range, or are there other safety issues involved?
Oh, the
Ed?
$1 million question. Yes.
It would be from it.
we did go ahead and replace the netting because one of the problems was there's a bunch of holes in it, and we were holding off replacing the netting because we thought several years ago we were going to be implementing the improvements, and it just didn't happen. And right now we're limiting the driving range to you can't use any club that you can hit farther than, I don't know what it is. There's a number, there's a sign at the desk there. Is it 200 yards or something like that? And so that's how we're managing the safety right now. So that really was the first, we started down the road with the first design consultant thinking that yes, we could just do a combination of raising it, expanding it a little bit, and we'll come up with a solution. But when the modeling and the technologies of both the different types of balls and drivers and the skill set of the players just continues to get longer and longer. And so the modeling expert who was used nationally, and very few people who do this, said it had to be, I think it was 120 feet. No. It was over 200 feet. And the cost of the poles had to be steel. You couldn't use wood. Right now we've got wood poles and they're about 30 feet, 35. And it was over $1 million. And the first design consultant said, spending that much money on poles, you could make a much better impact to your golf course by reconfiguring the holes and not incurring that cost and the long-term maintenance of replacing that net, that much net. So that's what they explored. But what that resulted in was shortening some holes. And that was really the fundamental reason Blago was very non-supportive of that path forward. So, it would be nice if, and I asked the question, well, why can't we just raise them to capture 80%, 85% of the balls? Why does it have to be 100%? And it really came down to design professionals and risk analysis and the standards out there. And the standard says that we'll be an irresponsible operator if we, now with the knowledge we know of what is required to meet the current standards for safety netting at a driving range. They said that they can't stand behind that and will not put any kind of design stamp or professional name on capturing a portion of the balls. It really is about mitigating the safety issue to the standard that's out there in the industry today. It sounds so common sense, but the design professionals will not move forward with a design that is shorter than capturing all of it, which is well in excess of $1 million. So I hope that answers that, Ed. See, do you want me to go to the next one, Caroline?
Sure. I think Akana had something that you've probably touched on some of these, but they were talking about the broadband.
Yes. So it's been over a month since the county reviewed and approved the survey questions that are again coming. We're working with a survey company that is using industry standard questions so we can compare our responses nationally to other communities when we get it, to see where we stand. And they haven't given us a date. And I don't know exactly what the holdup is, other than it's just they saying it's at the printers and then mailers. But I really do think that if I were to guess, the holdup has been just that everybody in the nation's trying to work, do broadband studies, and so the resources are just tied thin. I did offer to print it in-house, and we have a meeting tomorrow to pull those dates, but it should be soon. It should be very soon. The survey should be ready to go. It just needs to be printed and mailed. And then
Let's see. I think there were two on that. And I think Jean's you answered, right? And
Well-
Connor's about, or maybe Jean's talking about the contracting separately.
Well, she's asking, do the departments
Yeah.
contract separately? We have a centralized procurement department. And that they're the ones that issues all of our RFPs and our contracts, and it also goes through our legal department. We have had over the last couple of years, just because of our increase, as our budgets have gone up and we're being asked to do more, we're doing more contracts than we've ever done. And so we have added resources to both those groups, legal and procurement, to try to address that. But once they're approved, the point of contact for each of those contracts for implementation can be in multiple different departments, depending on what it is, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I have a question. I think we covered everyone's, right? Maybe, or did we not? Because I want to do those first. But I find this, like almost over my ability to synthesize. But on this affordable housing, I get that, absolutely. I mean, we all do. But I'm unsure as to what either the county council or the county people like you or anyone others up there, what is it that we can do, or you, not me, you guys can do, and what you cannot do, because it seems to be one of those major issues, not only in Los Alamos, much like inflation, it is not just in America, of what one can do and the limits of how many new housing we can actually have in Los Alamos, given that we have 3 main streets. And, I mean, if we had to evacuate or just traffic, and I think having moved here from Southern California, I would just like to say that lately it's like Southern California driving just to the grocery store. But anyway, I just don't know that everyone, some do, but some of us don't, have an idea of who's in charge of what and what we can and can't do. Does that make sense of how I'm phrasing that or not?
It does. So let me does this meeting go past 1 o'clock? I just want to make sure.
You know what? You can go in. I wasn't paying attention.
No. I'm good to go past 1. I can give you a quick answer. I just didn't want to.
Yeah, I mean, we can do this, and unless anyone else has a question, then we can just end it then. And if people need to drop off, certainly feel free to do so. Okay.
Well, I'll give my short answer. You're absolutely correct. It's very complicated, affordable housing, and what governments or nonprofits or partnerships of both can do. So a good example of what we can do is we can donate land if we have it. And we can do it with conditions about the affordability. So basically what happens is the donation of the land allows the developer, and in the situation of Kanyawaki, get housing credits that they can then sell for the next 15 years. And that's how they fund doing affordable housing, between the housing credits and the lower cost of land, or no cost of land in this case. They're able to make it work. That's not always enough. There could be other, like public utility contributions. Affordable housing is one of those things in the law that is exempt from anti-donation. That's in our Constitution. So that's why you hear about it a lot. Another example, the reason we're talking to the schools for North Mesa is because that's an example of where there might be a partnership where, because the schools own the land and the county could make a contribution, we'd want a third-party developer. We don't necessarily develop housing ourselves, but there could be some mix where we could make that housing affordable through how that agreement is formed. There's a lot of other things that can be done. Different employers can purchase housing and allow it for rent for some of their employees. I think some of you are aware we've got modular units on some of our county land and schools land for police officers and firefighters sometimes that live in. So anyway, I think that might be a good future presentation if you ever want to
Yeah.
talk affordable housing, that you could, there's a few people that you could invite to a panel on that, if people are interested.
Yeah, I guess one of the reasons I asked that, and JJ, I'll call on you in just a minute, fans willing to stay, is that because I worked for the schools, I know that we did Pinion Trails. I know that that was land that the schools owned, and it was designed for affordability for particularly staff, not necessarily teachers, but it could be staff. But now they're not affordable. I mean, I don't know exactly what affordable means. I'm not sure the definition of affordable. So I don't know, as housing goes up, so do those houses go up. So now they're kind of like not so affordable. And I'm not even sure the definition of affordable. I don't even, maybe you can tell me what that is. And what we're talking about is apartments which don't give you ability to sell later for more money than what you paid for it, but you're just living in it, but you can still live here. So there's a really fine lines, I think, between these different issues. You know what I mean? Like everyone's talking about affordable housing, but I'm not sure if they're talking about affordable rents, affordable housing. And then what happens when you buy the affordable housing? Do you then get to pay to sell it on this public trust land? Even do you make money on that house that you bought in 2023 and you're the one to sell it in 2029? I think those are that would be a good thing. Maybe I will talk to you later about who would be the best person to call to talk about that, because I think it's a extremely hot issue. But I will stop. And JJ, do you want to go ahead and unmute yourself? Are you there, JJ? I see a hand up.
Oh, there.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Great.
Quick
You're
question.
good.
Quick question about the status of completing the road work on Sherwood Boulevard for those of us in White Rock. Can you provide any updated information?
That's a great question. I believe they've made it through the last delay I heard was that there was a really complex sewer connection that no one had ever seen in that configuration that had to be found. And I believe they made it past that hurdle and things are looking really good and there's end in sight. But if you send me your email, I will get you a more detailed current schedule if you want specifics.
Thanks.
And then I'll just wrap up by, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all. And Carol Ann, the affordability is generally, there's two different things I think about. One is no one should be paying more than 30% of their take home on housing. The other one is you determine affordability based on an average area median income, or AMI. And so for a community like ours, you take the average area median income, and anything 80% or below is considered would need affordable housing or eligible, obviously at a different level of subsidy. And then, but what we find is that our, service workforce usually is going to fall 60% or below area median income.
What is our median income these days?
Very high.
I know I think almost everyone will be, under that. I mean, that is the problem, right? That it's so high that everybody can do it. I don't know. These unsolvable problems. Anyway, unless anyone has anything else to say, we can thank Anne for your time and being on the hot seat. We really appreciate you coming and giving up your lunchtime or whatever time this was to talk with us.